I am Geoff Eido. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane and admit that whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. My guest today is my dear brother and friend, Lucien Vattel. Lucien is a transformational sage, and he's done a tremendous amount of work on developing tools and techniques for people to really harness their own inner mastery, to really become a master of yourself. And I'm really excited. He's got a lot of new work today coming up. He's got a new book coming out, a bunch of new courses that he's offering. It's really like a new iteration of what he has to offer in service to people. And it's going to be a deep exploration, and I think really revealing as to a lot of tools that we can use to deepen our understanding of ourselves and really claim our own power in the face of our shadow.
Well said. Quintessence. You really captured.
Oh, good.
Brought it together.
Good. Thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Yeah. It's an honor to be with you, brother.
Thank you. And it's really great to have you here. My brother.
I feel that.
Yeah. Lucian's been here, staying with us for about a week now. It's been really, really lovely to have you here. So it's great to drop in.
Always great to spend time with you.
Yeah. And this also, by the way, represents, a new iteration of Lunacy, of this podcast. As everybody knows out there, it's a luminary podcast, meaning that I interview people I consider to be luminaries. You certainly fall into that category. And also the goal of the podcast is to provide illumination to people. So that's what we're out to achieve, and harmony for people. But also, if you're watching on YouTube, you might notice this is a 3-camera shoot. What?
Upgrade.
Drop the mic. Upgrade. Big time upgrade. So we're going with that from now on. Really want to offer the best possible product that we can here. So, and Lucian's been very helpful in that endeavor and encouraging. So thank you. Thanks for making me upgrade this shit, man. You know what I mean? You really just kicked me in the ass and made me just look at it and be like, all right, fine. I was stubborn. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to deal with it, you guys. I'm not going to lie about it, all right? Didn't want to do the extra editing, etc. But there's this artificial intelligence thing that helps you a lot. So I'm going to use that. And it looks better. It's more polished.
I'm honored to be kicking you in the ass.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your boots. Appreciate it. They're nice ones. And that jacket is amazing, too. Brand new jacket. I love the jacket.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So, your work, your approach describes becoming an advanced version of yourself, living at a higher octave of reality. What does this higher octave look like in everyday life for people?
There's a couple of elements to it. The first is a person who's significantly more aware than your average person. What is it? You have to ask you have to ask yourself, well, what does that mean to be more aware? It's more aware of yourself, more aware of your surroundings, more aware of the clues and signs from the universe, so that you're in more deeper relationship with life. So the awareness within, the awareness without, as represented in everyday experiences, everyday relationships, significant relationships. How do we turn every single interrelational dynamic into a space of higher awareness that allows us to receive more gifts from it for ourselves, for our own growth, for our own being. And so that'd be one aspect to it, living in a higher octave. The higher octave is more awareness. The other component of living in a higher octave is, living in less lower frequency in terms of your beingness on your day-to-day, operating in less and less of the lower frequency energies, the energies that contract you, the energies that limit you, the energies that put you in a place of lensing your life in a way that doesn't serve you. Ultimately, doesn't serve the moment, doesn't serve the relationship, doesn't serve your goals, doesn't serve what you want to achieve. So living in a higher octave in that respect includes this is more of an alchemical, this is where we kind of bring the alchemy component, is the refinement of the self and eliminating or transmuting or refining those aspects of self that the parts of you that tend to fall into those energies, to move them. And again, it comes back to awareness, bringing awareness to and having the tools to get in the tool shed with these parts and bring them up into the higher octave, and then building the habituation, the repatterning, the commitment to the becoming into the new being, or actually your true self, where that higher octave becomes more and more normalized. And I also think of it as like, to use a computer analogy, like your operating system, right? So like if you're running, like if you keep hearing the fan and you keep, and the thing is heating up and like things are getting choppy, you might need to look at your RAM. And so like if you look at your RAM, like random access memory, it's like temporary memory or it's like this, you can think of it as energy.
Yeah.
If these parts are eating up your day, unconsciously or consciously eating up your day with these other spaces inside of you that are either distracting or working against where you actually want to be, then they're eating up your RAM.
Yeah.
And not only are they taking you into places that distract you or bring you in these other spaces, you have a limited capacity. So first of all, just from a nervous system perspective, your daily capacity to hold and move energy in your body and also in your consciousness, first of all, you can expand that capacity, but also if you have a lot of all these other things, those things are depleting that capacity. So living in a higher octave is debugging the system and freeing up the RAM, as it were, so that there's more available to just be in the higher frequency.
Yeah. There's some active cleansing aspect.
There's some active cleansing aspect. The other component, particularly to the work that I do, is I call avatar work, which is not only are you freeing out these lower frequencies, but you are manifesting, and this is where I think that I have a lot of fun with it, is more connecting to like the DJing your own reality. Like we are manifestors, we are creators of our story. Parts of our story are ours and parts of them are borrowed.
Right. Or programmed.
Or programmed, imprints of all kinds. So like we're freeing those imprints, but then we have more capacity. You were mentioning today about how your wife was by learning her color coordination in her outfits, she realized like what was the most alignment, color and texture wise to like her being, like in terms of her fashion. And then she freed, once she got in tune with this like new thing that you're doing with like color coding your fashion, she freed up a whole section of her wardrobe, right? Which then created the RAM for her to actually fill her wardrobe with more things that were in alignment.
Yeah. So, and just to clarify for everybody, she did color analysis, which if anybody's interested, you can email me at info@geoffeido.com. Our friend Shireen does it. She's amazing. And, really shows you what colors are in your palette. And then you get cards that you could take, and they show you these are the colors that are yours and these are the colors that are not yours, that match your face, which sounds dumb. I thought it was dumb. It's awesome. It's great. And so then she like eliminated 3/4 of her closet, like you said, and same with me. And also now whenever I go shopping, it's like I take out the cards and it makes it so easy to pick stuff because it's like, oh, this looks good, but I'm not sure, now I know for sure.
Yeah.
So it's like there's an alignment. So what you're saying, you're using that as a metaphor for, how it is that we match our vibration of qualities that we have, what's really in alignment, what's out of alignment, so that we can just let go of those things.
Yeah.
So it's really, you're talking about raising awareness. It's funny. I have to say that the frequency thing, like I grew up in Omaha. So, people were talking at that time back then about like, oh yeah, you got to raise your frequency, man. And I was sort of like, what the does that mean? Like, come on, dude. But now I got to say I'm a total frequency convert. Like, I totally get it. Particularly if you think the lower frequency things are the things that are pulling me down, or that are getting in my way, or that are my blocks or my obstacles, or they're the things that make me depressed or make me resigned and cynical in my life, that are like pulling me out of my purpose, that are making me feel blasé or bored or apathetic. These things, those are all lower frequency things. They're all lower frequency things. They're lower frequency for you. So you want the higher frequency for you.
Yeah, that's right. Because you
can also all lower frequency things that you want to get rid of, so that you can operate at a higher frequency or a higher octave, as you put it.
Yeah, and whether you believe in the metaphysical aspect or subscribe to it, it's a useful metaphor.
It is.
It's helpful. You can either look at it from just like the metaphorical, like just help you kind of frame it.
Yeah.
Or you can get it into the esoteric aspect, or get into like the metaphysical component, or what we're learning now about frequency and go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't matter. What matters is like really seeing that like you can operate in this higher state.
Totally.
As a norm. And with the avatar component is when you free up that RAM, you have more availability to create new parts of your own design. So that's the other component, which is we have the ability to build our own tapestry or being. We have our own mandala of being.
Yeah.
Once we free up some components and we get into like learning how to feel into new ways of being that we hold as a higher frequency, or something that allows us to be in the world in a way that we've always hoped to be, or would feel that would be very beneficial to us in our marriage and our relationship, as a father, as a mother, as a leader, as a brother, or in your trade, and in your service. So, there are certain things that we can activate, and that operates on similar principles, but it's more about cultivating what these things are, and then learning how to invoke and imbibe your vessel as these things, and then until they first they begin as thought forms, and then they begin as pattern, then they become patterns, and then they become ways of being.
Yeah, that's really great. I love that, because, I think so often people, we just think, oh, well, these are my natural talents. These are my natural ways of being, and that's kind of it, that's all that I have access to. But you can take qualities, values that you admire in other people that you really would like to have, and that you can see, wow, this would make me so much more effective, and help me so much in my relationships. Like maybe I'm not patient in my life, so maybe I want to develop more patience, because I see how that could be so helpful in my relationship, so then it's not off the table. No, that's something that I can actually consciously cultivate in my life, that I can program, and then not only program it, but get it to a place where it's like locked in. That's part of my thing. Like people recognize it in me, and they're like, wow, you're really patient, because I'm seeing from that perspective. Like I'm separating myself off. I'm in the gap, so to speak. I'm witnessing myself so much so that I can just wait until the time is right for me to say something. And even if that's not you, that can be you, because you can choose that to be you.
Yes. And you can begin the path to that. And the journey itself to become that is its own experience, because that goes back to the little thing that I was mentioning before, is like, you're building an awareness with yourself, you're building awareness with things outside of you, but you're also building awareness with, I like to use the universe. And when I say universe, I say it's the permeating field of consciousness that informs synchronicities, or informs the things that we magnetize into our lives, or
Yeah.
informs the relationships and
The force.
Yes.
But it's a real thing,
It's
like
a
the real force.
It's a force that impacts your life, that is permeated throughout your lifetime, and that as you get older and wiser, you begin to, if you look at, secular dynamics, if you look at kind of start seeing your life, oh wait, I've come back around to that again.
Cyclical.
Yeah, you see that things are kind of you're moving around the stage of life. And so, I think I'm also speaking to an awareness of that.
Sure.
And even more to the point, like I can give you a good example. It's like, as incarnated beings, one of the great things about, the incarnated life is that we're moving through a spiritual process.
Mm-hmm.
But the outside material world reflects, the inner world, and it's a big biofeedback. One might even say divine biofeedback system that is giving us this data. And if we bring more awareness to it, we begin to pick up on the data at a higher degree of proficiency and refinement. And so, for example, patience, like if you're on the path to patience, like with some of my clients, let's say a client will activate patience. One of the things that the study brings is to see that in your life, you are attracting usually either higher aspects or lower aspects of that energetic. And you can also point to like something like the gene keys or the I Ching, or things that look at like the polarity of energies that, go from like contracted state to the expanded state.
Yeah.
But you may attract a father that is impatient, that teaches you patience through impatience.
Right.
And you may have a best friend who's just Zen, or you have someone that you follow online or read of their teachings, and you attune to their patience by virtue of reading their work, or that's how we model ourselves, and we do that from a very young age. And when we're young and more unconscious, we're being imprinted unconsciously by those things. And then if we choose to develop inner mastery, we then begin to have a very dynamic relationship with those things, and we begin to inform those things, and we begin to operate as more at the magi level, or the alchemist level, or the mastery level. And that means that we're operating more at that awareness level, and the ability to extract the jewel, to extract the gift, to see what it actually is. If you were to see your whole life as a personal development incubator, and all experiences as clues and supports to your own spiritual growth, then your awareness changes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's really interesting because for me, I don't know, man. I always I believe in superpowers, and I believe in love. Like I believe that I've always felt like this can't just be it. It can't just be, the basic things, right, that we do in this life. This body, this mechanism must be attuned to some higher purpose that will allow me to achieve more greatness in terms of my ability to serve other people and what I can do and how I can experience life. There's something missing. We're just missing the manual, like that TV show, Greatest American Hero. I don't know if I'm dating myself, but anyway, he gets this super suit and he can't figure it out.
How does the song go?
He can Greatest American Hero.
No, I think that's G.I. Joe.
Oh, that's G.I. Joe.
Great American G.I. Joe. No, it's looking at how I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free, flying away on a wing in a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me. Oh yeah, that's right, baby.
Oh, we just crushed that. That's
we did
good.
crush it.
Good job,
right, baby. Let's do it.
Yeah, like that. You know, that's, I mean, that's why I loved that TV show. But also, like, you know, I do feel like it is that, you know, I think most of us feel that. Most of us feel that way. There's got to be so much more, you know, and personal development, I think, is something that some people scoff at. They're like, what are you doing, dude? I don't get it. You know, life is personal development, as you say. Whether you choose to accept that you are in a personal development life or not, you are. And when you kick it, I firmly believe you're going to look back and go, either you're going to go, ugh, why didn't I learn those lessons? Why was I so attached to all this bullshit, you know? Or you're going to go, wow, I really did like evolve. I really did learn these lessons, you know?
Yeah.
For me, it's like, I think of this, I love this concept of like, and I want to do like either a concert or a conference. Don't steal this idea. All right. It's trademarked right now. All right. All cameras, the conscious evolution revolution. You know, that like
Conscious evolution. Yes.
revolution, that we're like really like consciously evolving, that I am, you know, what you're talking about, the work that you're doing is totally in alignment with that, where you're like looking at your shadow, which we're going to get into that in a couple minutes. And really seeing the qualities that are bringing me down, and then identifying those, accepting those, standing in my own weakness, right? Of that, those things are there, that's how I'm behaving. That's who I'm being.
Yes.
Not on purpose, just that's what I've been programmed with, or I've inherited, or I've made up. I've created that story. Just that's what it is, right? And then consciously I accept that. I forgive myself for having that. These are all challenging steps. And then I choose, in light of those things, what's really going to make a difference for me? What's the like you talk about, we'll get into avatars a little bit, or qualities or values that are really going to make a difference for me.
Yeah, just goals in life that you have for yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if what I desire and want for myself is not in alignment to who I be,
Right.
like who I'm being, that's why it's like, it's less about what you want and how to get there, and it's more about who are you being that naturally allows you to have that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's much going to the who you're being. It's a more accelerated work, and it generates more exponential returns on your outer world than like the sort of charging forward through the deliverables of life.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really,
I mean, both are important.
Both are important. Yeah. You know, there's a thing in landmark education, credit to them. You know, they talk about, you know, we operate mostly from a have, do, be model. Like, when I have the money I need, then I will, you know, use that to make the movie that I want to make, so that I can be the superstar that I see myself being, if that's your dream, right? Yeah. Have, do, be. When I have the things that I need, the resources that I need, then I will take the actions that I need to do in order to be the man that I really dream of being, right? Whereas the landmark model, and your model obviously also comes from, and the fucking thing that works is the opposite. Be, do, have. Be the superstar, you know, and then you'll do the thing, you know, you'll make the movie, and then you'll have the resources will come to you in order to, you know, manifest that in your life.
Yeah. And
there's nothing without the being. Like, that's the kind of the core of your work, right? Is that like, and frankly, the core of the truth as it is, you know, what you're saying is like, if I have a dream, like let's say, for instance, I have a dream of being a really great musician. If I'm not being a really great musician, or if I'm not being fully vulnerable and committed to the story that I'm telling, and really like into it, so that people have access to it from a real way, then nobody's ever gonna listen to my stuff. It has nothing to do with when I get the record deal. It won't be. It
also won't be resonant for you. You know, you can make an album that does well, but like you hate.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it wasn't something that was authentic for you and came from a place that was important for you.
Right. A place where I'm looking for validation or whatever.
Yes. that brings up something personal for me around the idea that, like, yeah, if you can achieve the external, you can get to the milestone. You know, we have the ability to workhorse ourselves to where we like. I mean, we're powerful in that respect too.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me, I think I was 31. I was a tech CEO at the time, and I did a TEDx talk, and that put me on the talking circuit. And it was the first time that I became, you know, a voice. Mm-hmm. And that was new for me. And on the surface, it had achieved my goals for my business and for what I wanted to achieve, like getting the message out and what I wanted to, all the things that I thought being a speaker would bring.
Yeah.
But it did lead to a spiritual crisis, mm-hmm. because what I realized was there was a bit of a facade happening on one level, mm-hmm. because I was not fully doing it for all the right reasons. There was still a part of me that was trying to prove myself mm-hmm. to myself. Uh-huh. That by being a speaker would validate, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't validate it, you know? And when people would talk to me and start approaching me as like an authority, I had a lot of anxiety, mm-hmm. which also revealed that I had not worked out all the stuff that was behind the little boy in me who was needing to do all of that.
Yeah. Because
I was still having anxiety, social anxiety around people seeing me as a leader. Mm-hmm. It triggered me, actually.
For sure.
And so that took me on, a much deeper, well, it really started my path. That was like one of the first series of things that happened both in my personal life and my marriage and my career that were just pointing to the fact that I had spent a lot of energy on the surface features and on the doing and not enough on the being, where what I had created from the doing and what I was at the being. And I think that, also when you become more awakened as a person or deepened and you go through these types of experiences, you can see that in people.
Yeah.
You can see the mismatch, mm-hmm. And because you've been through it yourself.
Right.
So it's very important.
Yeah. Super important to come from that, to really work on the craft of the being as much as possible. And, you point to so many things there, like the little boy energy, obviously, like, I'm presently and have been doing so much like men's work, which I think everyone should do because it's super lost in our culture, and dealing with where is it that I'm, being a little boy in life, looking at Jungian archetypes that really paint the picture, and then acknowledging those things and accepting that weakness and stepping into ownership, which actually is something that I also want to talk with you about, like, the importance of radical responsibility in your work. You call it facing the fire, like creating total ownership, which, for me is such a powerful concept. Like, it's hard to hold that all the time. But if I can, like, if I really can stand in, okay, I'm responsible for all of this, even though I'm triggered right now, even though this terrible thing happened to me, you know what I mean? Even though I have these, look at these circumstances, some of my circumstances. Some of my circumstances are pretty awful, right? But yeah. I'm not a victim of those circumstances because I own those circumstances, because I know that really that's just life happening, and I own my reaction, who I am. I'm not a product of those things because I own those circumstances. I own my place, and I own who I am. as challenging as it is. I'm not saying it's not. I'm perfect at it. I wish. Or maybe I don't wish, maybe I don't wish. Maybe it's just fun, batting my head around sometimes, you got to hit the pavement sometimes to know that it's hard. But like that level of total ownership, that level of radical responsibility is such a powerful place for us to come to, particularly when it comes to doing the work of inner mastery.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Fire facing. It's a funny one because it's a really important part of the programs that I run, and it's a big part of the book. And it's one of my most difficult ones. I think it's the deep warrior, deep hero work because, especially when we're hitting up against the big ones of our life, like the things that trigger us the most, the things that we're most afraid of, especially when we attract like the perfect tempest of things that happen that are literally our Achilles heel. Mm-hmm. It is extremely hard to face the fire.
Yeah.
I have something in my life that happened to me a couple of years ago interpersonally that I'm still raising up enough inner courage to face. Mm-hmm. And to go all the way in. And I'm not there yet, but again,
you see it.
Awareness.
Yeah.
And doing the work and getting there and being committed to getting there to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And then, there's other ones that are just like sort of the Goldilocks level edge where it's like, it's not like super boss 2000 hardcore multi-scaled 18-fired dragon, multi-headed demon. Uh-huh. It's a goblin, or it's something that is like mid-level, mid-tier, and there's fear there.
Yeah.
But building the practice of just being like, I'm owning this and we're doing this.
Yeah.
And just getting it out of the way. And I think some of those mid-tier ones, the things that I find with when I do the retreats and when I do the work with clients and when I do this work with myself, is that some of those mid-tier ones, they seem scary, but as soon as you do them, you're like, I can't believe I waited.
Yeah.
To do that. Like,
there's so much of weight loss immediately. And
like
freedom.
It wasn't even that big a deal.
Yeah.
But in your mind, it was.
For sure. And fascinatingly, first of all, I love that you brought that up, and I appreciate your vulnerability in sharing that. Because, it points out that, like, obviously there are Herculean things that can befall us, terrible things. And, to be able to just look at them and see, okay, that's a big one, and I see it over there. I'm not fully ready to, like, battle it and go to the boss level with that 18-headed Gorgon or whatever it is that you mentioned.
18-headed Gorgon. That's good. Okay,
but
upgrade. I'm calling it that.
But I that one's free. All right. But I see it over there, wiggling its 18 little heads, and I know that that's on the horizon. Yeah. Like, it's not like you have to tackle it right away. You know what I mean? It's there. It's on the list, right? And if I get through all these other, and it's fun that the video game analogy is so great. The demon analogy is so great because it's like, what's this?
Well, we created
level?
These things in our psyche so that we can address them. We've created these. We've manifested these realms of unbelievably powerful, mythic, that have now become, and one could argue that completely exist. Because they've been given so much creation here and there and everywhere. Mm-hmm. But even if they didn't exist, they would need to be created.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Because how else can the psyche compartmentalize its shadow? How else can the psyche compartmentalize its light in order to navigate its own consciousness? We need these waypoints so that we can work through it, and that's another thing that just occurs to me is like, and that's what I'm trying to do with these books and this work also is like, And it's what a lot of, this period, one of the great things, I mean, there is a lot of shadow from the coaching industry, but there's so much beauty that has emerged from this, the last 15 years. A lot of times in social media, you hear a lot about like sort of the downside of it. But don't get lost in the weeds. Like it's incredible the amount of descriptors we have now for things that like were once felt but could never really be described in terms of
communicated,
or communicated.
You didn't have permission to talk about it anyway.
Yes. These things help, couples navigate things that they feel but don't understand. It helps working through trauma. As even the psychedelic world and the medicine world, the more, you and I both have a good friend, Kai, who does amazing work in the shamanistic field, and
been on the program a few times actually.
Yeah. And he's incredible at building rich lexicons that help people, both that he pulls from masters, but he's also just a wizard of the word. And the more that we can describe these things and articulate, that's another form of mastery. I like to think of it as cleaning the mirror. If we can keep cleaning the mirror, if we can bring more words to form, if we can create more ability to communicate with ourselves and with others, these phenomenon in consciousness, we can co-create better. We can navigate our own interpersonal spaces better. We can move through our shadow. So many things, move through these psychedelic experiences, these healing experiences. You even see it in politics and in the evolution of society. But it's also, it can go the other way too. The power of the word can be used to confuse and obscure and
yes, and delude
and so, but that also requires awareness. It requires two things actually. The first two things: the awareness component, the lexicon component, the word, but also the inner compass, and which is another big aspect of operating in the fire frequency. Because if you don't, you could also just get lost in the wording of others. You could get lost in the reflections of others. You could get lost in the imprints of others, without your own. So it's really also important to develop your inner compass, your North Star, your sense of being, common sense, whatever that is for you, that allows you to question and evaluate and have discernment, and moving more into something I love that you always talk about, which is sovereignty. How do I build an internal system that is sovereign, that allows me to interface in the world in a way that still allows me to come back to me, make final decision for right or for wrong, what that is. But I'm doing it in getting more and more conscious at just doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings up something that you talk about in your work a lot, which I also very much appreciate, which is like distinguishing between, things that are borrowed beliefs and imprints, that people have latched onto or taken, and the authentic self. Because so much for me in my journey around declaring my own sovereignty, which is like, it seems like a never ending battle. It's just always ongoing for a lot of reasons. One, because time and space. We only had this one moment and then it's gone. So I might have a moment where I'm like, I'm fully sovereign. And then like, I don't know, I watch the news or something and I'm like, oh no, it's all going to shit.
It's got you, it hooked you. It happens to me.
I mean, but also
all the time.
It's very much so much about like, and also for the look, man, there is no denying that for whatever reason, there's a lot of fear that gets programmed into our society, and maybe it's because fear sells, so people are going to watch the news, so we're going to have locked eyeballs, and we're going to talk about how terrible things are going, and it doesn't really matter who's in office, although right now it's gotten worse, but before, it was just as bad. It was just as bad. You watch MSNBC or whatever it is, it's like, or Fox, it's just like, that's all going there wrong. It's so polarized and full of this frequency of let's make people afraid, and look, it could be that the fucking lizard people are taking over, and they just love feeling fear. All right. I don't know. That's cool. I like that idea because, I want to see lizard people. All right. I'm into science fiction.
It's a great sci-fi narrative.
Or it could just be fear sells. And that's what people are using to sell fear. And so, it's profitable. Fear is profitable. But no matter what it is, there has to be an acknowledgement that is in the space, and that there are entities or beliefs or, attitudes or things that people say or ways that people look at you or whatever that are driving you to live more in a fear operating system. That are driving you to bring you down to live in your own shadow versus living in the love operating system, which I'm all about, right? How do I love more? How do I let go of the things that are holding me back? How do I live at that higher octave in my life, that higher frequency, and obviously a lot of your work is dedicated to that, really looking at these beliefs that we have and seeing where the bullshit lies. Because once one sees a bullshit belief, once I see a bullshit belief in myself, and I'm like, oh, that's really not true at all.
Yeah.
Two things happen. One, I feel freedom. And the other thing for me is I get mad in a good way. But it's like, oh, if that's not true, then what can I do with myself? How can I upgrade? How can I behave? How can I change things?
Yeah.
But so much of your work is about identifying those borrowed beliefs. So maybe you could just kind of feed into that. How is it that you drive at that notion, of really looking at what are the borrowed beliefs, the limiting beliefs that I have, and what's really authentic to who I am and what I believe.
Yes.
One
of the things that occurs to me right off the bat, just hearing you, is and this is an interesting query, and it's something I want to go deeper into in my own contemplation. But yeah, it's what is that great existential kink for people about fear, or outrage, or that makes them latch on to that type of stuff. It's what makes social media design so interesting, of when you look at the phenomenon, we're still in the infant period, or the maybe early adolescent period of this phenomenon of this new way that we relate to each other, social media space. And yeah, so many things are designed to hook you, and people are doing that unconsciously, and people are very methodically doing that to grow their base. And if you look at the trend in a lot of the larger legacy media pieces, where it's the sort of death of journalism.
Yes.
And the reason why journalism is starting to just really exist only in either the social media sphere or the YouTube spaces, more honest, authentic curiosity, real. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of that's still doing the same stuff. But there is something emerging where people are wanting to feel the truth about things naturally, and these things aren't working as they used to. And it's kind of a microcosm of a macrocosm, or a macrocosm of a microcosm, because it speaks to where we are at the collective. And maybe the pandemic had a hand in that. It was the first time globally we all we all did the same thing. We all had the same experience. And then there was quite a bit of fallout from that experience in a variety of different ways, culturally, and people really, stuff that's really hit home, like in American history, there's like, last time something like that happened was probably Vietnam, where like the entire country was divided, and like eventually people kind of, everything like just like, and then the pieces fell, and then, we look back and then we reframe it and then come to some new stage in our own societal evolution from it. But the pandemic is like, that's like that's the first time in the history of humankind that we all experience something, which is pretty significant, which makes you really, from like a psycho-spiritual perspective, it's pretty remarkable that we all got to have that experience. So we all collectively share in something.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. We all collectively share in something that we can all relate to. Like, and we've all been impacted by, and we all have come to our own conclusions, and we're still coming to our own conclusions. But in many ways, it's like shaping our own consciousness, and it's helping the collective like get to their own collective bullshit detector. Like it's refining the collective's ability. And so now like there's so much distrust of like collective systems and the response, and there's also the divide. But it's, in a way, if you look at it, it's no different than like you as an individual being fragmented by some event in your own family, and then you had to like reconfigure, like it kind of woke you up, and then like you and your brother had a completely different experience, and you're working it out in your own way, but like you had the same experience, but like you interpret it very differently. But that's happening collectively. But like in terms of like awakening, like what does it mean to awaken? Well, becoming more aware of the inside and the outside, as reflected in the outside, and the outside reflected in the inside. And it comes back to that thing we're talking about, the inner compass. Like, how does one refine one's own inner compass? Well, they get inundated with experiences like that, that kind of shake them and force them to come into some part of themselves. And either they're subscribing to something that they're being told by somebody else, or they really haven't taken the time to go within. But that, regardless of whether it's a collective event, that is just something we're always going through. We're always in a state, and we're always getting hit by big ones or little ones, and they all are different, hit different points on the spiritual wheel of evolution. Like, some are like interpersonal, some are family, some are like our own sense of compassion, our ability to love and relationship, our understanding of what even, the real deep relationship is, fatherhood, motherhood, all these things, like so many spokes. But you hit all these pandemic moments at like the individual level in all of those spokes, and it forces you to, you either pass the test, or you kind of pass the test, or you don't pass the test, and it's going to come around again.
Yeah, that's right.
But the inner mastery component is saying, I'm not willing to let it just come around again.
Yeah, right. It's the, hold on a second, hold the phone. Let's stop this for a second and really like take a cold hard look at what actually happened, and how I can be, going back to radical responsibility, how I can be fully responsible for my reactions to the events that happen, how I can look at, what ways I was coming from a fear-based place, versus like really owning who I am and loving who I am. And also like something else that you talk about a lot is the importance of being a witness. And really, like, it's impossible to evolve consciously without embracing the witness, without really being willing to like stop and like take a look back and be like, oh, this is how I handled that situation. Whoa. And being able to like look at, well, for me, I like to think about the importance of embracing my inner asshole. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like looking at, oh, okay, I was really being an asshole. And it's okay that I was being an asshole in that situation. It's okay. Like however that manifests, right? And I witnessed that, and then I can atone for whatever I did wrong, whether it was to somebody else or myself, and also choose to respond differently in the future. Like I can really mold myself out of that experience as a different man, as a different being. Lunacy is brought to you by Danger Coffee. Danger sounds like a terrible name. Does that mean it's dangerous? No, bucko, that makes you dangerous, right? 'Cause it's so dang good for you. Instant samurai, yeah, like steroids for Arnold, but with antioxidants, go. This coffee is handpicked from select farms for the incredible quality of the beans, and it's remineralized. That means that it's been infused with over 50 trace minerals and electrolytes, making you even more energized and feeling even more like Super You. It helps you detox. It boosts cells' performance. It gives all those internal things happening that we are blatantly unaware of a huge boost. Finally, and this is the reason I started buying it in the first place, okay? It's mold tested by a third party. Sorry to say, most coffee is not mold tested, and tons of it has mold that you cannot see, which is disgusting. It means your coffee becomes a toxin delivery system. Not what you want. This shit is clean as a whistle. All the good stuff, none of the bad. And you get 10% off when you type in Lunacy at checkout. Do it. You know you want to do it, so do it, all right? DangerCoffee.com, Lunacy at checkout. DangerCoffee.com, Lunacy at checkout, yeah. Lunacy is brought to you by Analemma Water. What is that? Well, it's structured water. I don't know if you've heard about this, but our regular water is not structured, and it's lacking in some stuff. All right? Structured water means that it's like supercharged, okay? And the Analemma wand actually trains the water around it to also be supercharged. Is that true? I don't know. I was extremely skeptical about this, and a friend brought it to me and was like, you got to try this. And I was like, that's horseshit. And then I tasted it, and I was like, that tastes good. Why does that taste good? Why does it taste better? I don't know why it tastes better. And I tried it time and time again, and finally I was like, okay, I'm going to invest in the wand. It's not that expensive, under $200. I was like, I'll try it out. I'm telling you, it works. It's helped me. I feel like it's helped me. And that could just be my own placebo. I don't really care, okay? Because go placebo. But honestly, I really believe that it works. They've done a bunch of tests. It's really good for your gut biome, which I desperately need. It's very good for your mitochondrial output, your cells. It's very good for your brain. They say it's good for anti-aging. And I firmly believe that it is an improvement in our regular water. So go to Analemma Water, check it out, type in Lunacy at checkout for 10% off. Invest in yourself. This is it. Tell us a little bit about like how it is that you how that you reflect on that, the importance of witness, and how that comes up in your work.
Yeah, well, the witness mind. So one of the things that in the work that I do is like it's building a pantheon of basically super tools that allows a person to see the aspects of their shadow, but also activate these new parts. And it's a kind of a combination of, it's really the integration of, I don't know, a little over a decade of integrating really different parts of the practices and work that I've studied in and worked with others in and developed through a variety of different modalities. But it's an integration of Jungian archetypes. For those familiar with parts work, the idea that we're not one thing, they're parts of us that show up in any given moment based on a variety of factors. It's parts work with these archetype systems, certain Jungian notions of shadow, but also I use the word magic in that, like, understanding that through creating, it's kind of a mixture of art catharsis, using art catharsis and notions of magic, and magic being that, like, if you can create symbols for things and you can create a language of your own consciousness and you can create sort of a magical code base for interfacing like your operating system, and then you use these magical principles to work with them inside of your own mind, inside of your own actions, with your own actions, then you can develop it. And for each person, there's usually a pantheon of these activations that are very particular to that person. Mm-hmm. They're really based on that person's path in this lifetime, what that person is looking to build, but also the things that their shadow and what keeps hitting up, and also what types of things that they really need to be activating that are going to be most helpful to them. Because for certain people, what a certain person needs to activate in their system, you already have, or it's really not a big part of like your flow or your vibe or your path or what's going on for you. Maybe it will be later, but not right now.
Yeah.
However, and this gets to your question, there are certain universal master keys to inner transformation that I've detected and begin to group over my work and use continuously. One is the fire facer. Mm-hmm. Everyone needs to be able to go through that initiation. Everyone needs to be able to activate that if they want to progress at a higher level, at a higher octave.
Yeah.
The other one in that collection of universal master keys is the witness mind. The witness mind is a ancient principle.
Yeah.
And simply put, it's a universal aspect of consciousness that one begins to activate in themselves. Historically, and it's the tradition of it, it's normally something that a person begins to become aware of in meditation. There's a great talk. I forgot the gentleman's name, but he talks about the witness mind. He talks about like sit in contemplation and meditation and allow your mind to contemplate. Do you hear the words? Like when you close your eyes and you hear yourself think, like, do you often hear those words? Can you hear your voice saying those things in your mind? I mean, do you hear your voice saying those things?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're hearing your voice talk. You can hear it. So who's the part of you that's hearing the voice?
Right.
Like, what's that part?
Mm-hmm.
That part that's hearing it, that's the exploration. And we have the ability to observe.
And recognizing that allows you to witness it.
Yes, spending more time in the recognition and the placement of that part of yourself. Mm-hmm. But also we can, though, if we're really in the ego, still move into witnessing, but still be in a part of ourselves that has like a lens. Like you might be judging it or you might be upset about it. But the witness mind that we develop in our work is the neutral mind. It is getting to a place of equanimity, learning and adjusting to what equanimity feels like. Mm-hmm. You know, how neutral and in that space can you be when thoughts are happening? And most importantly, when you are super triggered. Mm-hmm. Like you are so like, can you, when you are like, whoa, things are coming out of my mouth. What's going on? Like I am totally taken over. Mm-hmm. Can we, in those moments, pull back? It's like,
and slow it down too.
Slow it down and pull back and get to like that center lighthouse. Like if you imagine a lighthouse in the center of the land and the light is shining, from the lighthouse. And right now the lighthouse is like, you were on this like energy and you were just in it, but can you kind of like come back, mm-hmm. right? And then can you rotate the lens of like, what's going to be the better lens for that situation? And that lens will not be neutral. It may be one of compassion. It may be one of like, hard medicine. It may be one of like terse, direct, loving, but very clear energy. Mm-hmm. It may be that the right lens for that trigger is silence and listening.
Yeah.
And so, but how can one even make that decision? How can one even come to what maybe is the best lens?
Yeah.
If one can't get to the witness mind. So the witness mind is critical for the acceleration in the ability to navigate the parts of consciousness that operate within us and to be able to modulate in ways that allow us to handle complex situations with higher degrees of mastery.
Yeah, 100%. And what's great about that is, and I'm still learning. All right. I'm not full Jedi over here on this witness shit. Okay. Just to be clear. But what I do find, in my own life, is that the more that I am willing and able to witness, especially when I'm super triggered, the easier that it gets for me to witness and to step into that energy and pause. If I'm super triggered and I'm upset with my wife, that's where it usually happens because she's my closest person in my life.
Of course.
Can I stop? Do I have the energy to just say, okay, hold on a second. I need a minute, let's pause this for a second. Go out, collect myself, come back, look at where was I triggered and what's the story that I'm making this mean right now? And or what boundary do I need to set with her that's going to, like allow me to protect myself? Like, not that she's intentionally attacking me or whatever, but just that what's the boundary that I need to set? Or what's the trigger? What's the cause? What's the traumatic source of this? Yeah. The more that I exercise that muscle, the better that I get at that. And by the way, the better our relationship becomes, and vice versa. She does the same thing. How do I? Wait a minute. Oh, what do I see? Where I'm not being, whatever, patient for her is a thing that she's working on actively, like, or whatever it is, like. That witness mind, the more that we exercise it, the more that it's there, the more that we can utilize it. You can
also be creative. Because like if you can get back and just kind of look at it, it's like looking at the canvas, and like because if you're in the canvas, you may not be able to think about what would be the right paint or what might be the right energy for your personality. Mm-hmm. Like I give you a good example. Like my friend, he's building this musical ranch right now. Mm-hmm. And he is experiencing, he's never worked with contractors or, it's been quite an eye-opening experience of like, I don't know if you've ever seen that Tom Hanks movie, The Money Pit, like
great movie,
it's like you have no idea what you're getting into when you do a real fixer-upper, know what I mean? And it's a huge property, and it's got every single day is a new what WTF moment for him. Mm-hmm. I may be over exaggerating, but like one of the things that we did in that, it just comes to mind. It's like a fun, and this kind of goes to the idea that like how creative and playful this can be. Mm-hmm. Like the way that you solve these moments. Because fundamentally, the way in which he was filtering that experience initially was like, oh my God, this is a never-ending pit of despair.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to it's like one problem after the other. Mm-hmm. And like I'm making progress.
Just when you thought
just when I'm thought, it's like, and it's like.
The floor falls out.
And the floor falls out. Exactly. And, you can get the worst thing that can happen. And what was starting to happen is the worst thing is that it's really not what's happening that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's how you have decided to experience it.
Yes.
Because once you start deciding to experience it, like once you start deciding to experience the challenges of your marriage as a story of despair, you're on the way to divorce.
That's it. You're done.
You're done.
And having contempt for that.
And contempt and the resentment and whatever. You are building your own sabotaged story. You know, it's just like, you're doing it, man.
Yeah. Hashtag super. I mean, much compassion
To all of us.
anyone
who's been through it.
Hard deal. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know, first we got into the witness of like, okay, well, like, what actually is just happening here?
Yeah. What are the things, the actual facts?
Yeah. What's the real data outside of you? If we take the sort of Eeyore like filter off of this experience, you know, because like it could be Tigger, it could be Winnie the Pooh, it could be any of those characters,
right?
But right now we're in Eeyore, you know, like we're like, it's like this is
right,
bruh.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but like but in order to take that filter off, coming back to that witness allows us to be like, wait a minute, okay, this is a filter. The experience is what it is.
Yeah.
This, I can't control
right
every part of this experience. I can maybe change it and control certain variables, but even in order to do that in the best way, this filter probably is not the best way. You cannot solve a problem from the consciousness that's in the problem. You know, there's like an age-old saying that's like, you can't solve the problem from the same thinking that created it. It's like, you can't solve the problem from a consciousness that exists in a dimension of energy that really is not optimal for solving it at all. Mm-hmm. Or even experiencing it in a way that's like, because you can still solve it and be miserable.
Yeah, right.
So you still get through it, but like by the end, you hate the property. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many people have you known who've like gone through all of this and then they end up, they have resentment towards their own property, you know, because the whole thing's been you know, for whatever reason, it's been something that's been a burden.
Yeah.
So getting to the climax of the story, we pulled back to the witness, and I was like, what's the most fun way to like see this? And like, if we could put a filter, that would be the most fun. And it's interesting because we've been mentioning it. It just came forward for him. It was like, what emerged was the whole thing became like a Legend of Zelda game.
Oh yeah.
And so we got like this like Legend of Zelda sword. And every single time like the drywall revealed the rot or like and he would like drop, we would play this super jam DJ version of like the Legend of Zelda song. It's like dun dun dun, and we would just dance and like get into like the thing, and it just immediately the lens shifted, you know. And it's as soon as you get in that other thing, it's like immediately solutions present themselves in your head,
right?
Like,
and it takes on less weight.
The weight, the burden, the energy, all of it.
And and that's, I mean, going back to the whole premise of the thing, it takes it out of the shadow and brings it into the light.
That's right.
And you know, that shadow, like, it's interesting. I was reading, I'm reading Carl Jung essays on nature right now, which is, you know, hail to Carl Jung. Thank you for
amazing
everything.
Book.
I mean, really, what are we doing here? We're just trying to be Carl Jung over here. You know, he's just disseminating. His wisdom is disseminating.
Master codes.
Really, and that's real. But he was talking about how, because the logos that got so developed in the last several centuries, like the logic, this is what it is in science and everything, which has been great technologically and etc. But we've lost our connection to spirit. And you know, before, by the way, at some point it was way too much involved in spirit, and it's all God, don't worry, and like whatever, we gave our power over to that. So now we've shifted the pendulum. But when we shifted the pendulum over to logos and sort of relinquishing our relationship to nature, we also developed an acumen like for cynicism and resignation, for being cynical and resigned about life, because we're just looking at it from a logical perspective, versus when we really like look at the source and look at nature and how it operates, or that's not part of our thing. And by the way, when we look at our connection to nature, we're also able to move, or our moral compass, or our inner compass, as you put it, not our moral compass, our inner compass sees instinctually, this is the direction that I'm going to go that would be in my highest. that would help me achieve the greatest result in my life, or achieve the dreams that I've been dreaming of, you know?
Right.
When we relinquish that, because that resignation, that cynicism that you're talking about with your friend, like, it's addictive, you know? And he very well could fully like fold in this music ranch that he's, this big dream of his that he's been dreaming, that he's now investing all of this money and time and energy in, like, could fold, and it could be a disappointment, and you have to go back to work at doing whatever he was doing before he did that. And then that would be this terrible story.
There's no way that's happening. Yeah.
But there's no way that's happening because he chose Legend of Zelda.
Yeah. Yeah. And his dream is so beautiful, and he's already creating it. It was just a couple of those, you know, his approach to dealing with the property, you know, that was his boss level.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
the attitude is the shift. It's interesting because one of the things that also made a huge impact on me, I really wish I could remember what. Sometimes I have a problem with names. An amazing medicine man, ayahuasca journey, and it was one of my favorite medicine advice, like shaman advice, that I ever got around doing the medicine. And he said that the difference, and this applies to life, like he said, the difference between you having an amazing journey and a very difficult journey tonight is one thing: your attitude.
Yeah.
And that was like a Rosetta Stone for me.
Yeah, it really is.
It every single time I've ever sat, anytime I start getting it, because the thing with like something like ayahuasca or like mushrooms, they're amplifiers.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're going to amplify whatever. So if you get into that place that he was in around his house in your medicine journey, I mean, you can spiral.
Yeah.
But it's a switch. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. This doesn't have to be what I hold in this space. Mm-hmm. Because ayahuasca is like, yeah, okay, so you're committed to feeling this way? Well, you're going to feel it all the way.
Yeah.
You're going to go all the way down and through.
It's going to show you.
It's going to show you the impact of that behavior or that way of thinking.
Yeah, which is work.
Amazing. That's
it's
so
great,
amazing.
But it's fucking hard.
It's hard. It's the amplifier of all inner states.
Yeah. And if you know, like you're saying, if you know that going in, if you know that my attitude really is the thing that's going to make the difference, and if I'm willing to be witness, and like, I mean, that's what's so weird, I think, about medicine journeys. And again, disclaimer, like, don't do ayahuasca unless you're really, really called to it. It's not critical to your growth. It's been very helpful for me personally, and I really love it, but it's all about setting, etc. I mean, no joking here. Okay. It's a very serious thing, but like, what has been great for me, and again, you can do this on your own, just through meditation or thinking about it and really looking at yourself. It really shows you like how you're being about stuff, and how it is that where it is that you're being a victim. It like takes your shadow and like is like, here, look at this.
Turn it up to 11.
Yeah, right. This one goes to 11. Right, you know what I mean? Right, you're at 11 on the asshole scale right now with this situation with your mum, you know, or whatever. Like, here's the truth. This is how you're being. Take a look at yourself. Is this the man that you want to be? Is this the woman that you want to be? Is this the person that you want to be? Like, choose, you know? It really like it really calls you to take a harsh look at your life, like a cold, hard, real look, where you're willing to, you know, and if you're not willing to accept that, if you're going to struggle through it, if you're going to fight against it, man, you're going to have a rough journey.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be fun, and you're going to come out the other side probably hating it and thinking, why did I ever do this in the first place? Right. But
you're going into victim there, you know, you're going into, you're not fire, you know, you're choosing not to choose the fire facer. Mm-hmm. You're choosing to cover your experience with another story that obscures the actual benefit and true medicine of the experience. Yeah. And again, it's your attitude, and it goes back to the lens again. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
It's funny. It's just, it always amazes me how often it just comes back to pride. Like it just comes back to misplaced pride.
Interesting.
You know, like
Misplaced pride.
I don't want to.
I see that. That's interesting.
Right?
Wow. I think you've just upgraded me.
Because it's
That's
like
amazing.
Oh, good. Thanks. Good.
That's a whole unlock.
It's because it's
the
like
pride component.
Yeah, because I'm proud of being the victim. What the fuck? Why am I proud of being a victim in that situation? Like what? That's no, you don't understand all the things that I've been through. It's been so awful, and I just
that points to the existential kink that we were talking about in the collective, even at the political and social level. That's kind of you're getting to the point of pulse on that right there.
Yeah. There's a pride that gets attached to all of the terrible things or ways of being that I've had. Well, I responded that way because I had this happen, you know?
Right.
Yeah, you had that happen, but you don't have to choose to be that way in your life. Like you don't have to stand in your weakness.
Yes.
Accept your shadow. Accept the fact that pride, like I think pride is the deadliest of the 7 deadlies, you know, and that's all useful information to look at, you know, like whoever came up with that. God bless them, because that's right, man. Pride is such a it's by the way, there's a distinction, right? It's not like I'm proud of you for writing this book, you know. That's a different kind of pride. It's weird that they're the same word. They should be different words. Like there's a big distinction there. You can have healthy pride for things, but like I'm talking like pride for like standing in it, being there. There's a pride that the shadow has. It's an ego trap. Yeah, and the ego, by the way, you know, when you look at this concept, I love this concept of looking at the ego as parasite. You know,
bring it.
Like that it's this thing that has attached itself to us that wants to identify as something so that it can exist, so that we have like a conception of reality. Because when you really see reality, when you take the blinders off, it would completely blow your mind. I mean, psychedelics can teach you that. You can get glimpses of it in dreams. You can see like the holy, oh my God, you know, you can go do 5-MeO, which I haven't even tried yet, DMT or whatever, and just be like, whoa, man, there's so much more than meets the eye. So there's like, the ego also is in a way kind of defending us, but it gets attached to this limiting belief, this little thing, and then it's prideful about it, and it tricks me into being prideful about it so that I can maintain this ego, so that I can like stay in this place that I've always survived, so that I never have to like actually you know, get unsafe, you know. But being unsafe and being uncomfortable is where the juice is, man. That's where the love lies. That's where the transformation is, you know. That's the facing the fire, being the warrior. Fine, let's go. Let's get uncomfortable.
Yeah, I want something's coming up for me around that too, which is the power of fellowship, the power of building support systems.
Yeah,
fellowship and friendship, conscious relationship, developing a commitment in your own partnership, of knowing that you're on that form of path together, and continuing to develop your ability to be allies on that path together. And the power of women's circles, the power of men's circles.
So important.
Because it's easy. Some of these things, you know, some of the things that are easy for me to be a fire facer on are like, you know, some other guys in my men's group, like there might be something I'm like, I kind of like mastered young because of whatever reason, or I came in with a natural propensity to be able to just face those things that someone in my group really has difficulty with, and I can be of service to,
and vice versa.
And also just encouragement and support, and the acknowledgement that these things it can be very difficult, and having a support system, an accountability system, a support system, a encouragement system. You know, encouragement plus accountability is the best support. You know, and when it comes to taking another jump into that boss level,
Yeah.
Challenge.
Yeah. And embracing your witness.
Some things we can do along and some things we can't.
Yeah, because you're being witnessed and embracing your witness and seeing it. And the men's thing, it's like so important. And that's so tribal and ancient. And like, I get so annoyed because people are like, oh, well, you're co-opting the indigenous people in the way that they did things. Fucking, what do you think we were doing 1,000 years ago, kid? Like, what do you think that we were doing before the English came in and into my druid village, and with their swords, right? And prevented me from sitting around the fire with my buddies. Like, we were doing this. This isn't like, and I'm, by the way, I'm no knocks on the indigenous people. I think, honestly, like, in a very real way, they are showing us the way because those traditions have been kept intact that are so natural and in union with nature. Right. But it's not like they fucking created it. It's part of who each of us is. But that
we're all endowed with that ability.
Yes, and our ancestors were doing that. They've been doing that. We've been doing this, sitting around the fire.
We've lost our connection to nature, and the existing indigenous have not, and so there are teachers in that respect because
yes.
So there are link back, but it's not about adopting or co-opting. It's really, and if you would speak to them, their whole desire is to help others come back.
Absolutely.
To that level of relationship.
And it's right. And honestly, like, it's honoring what they're up to too. Absolutely. And honoring that same place in ourselves. But the point that I wanted to add to what you're pointing to is like, back in the day, man, you were spending time with your dad when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Dad wasn't at work all day long. Okay. He was going hunting, right? And you were going with him and you were going to see what he knew. And he's gone through the fire and he has lots to teach you. You're around your grandfather. You're around elder men who can demonstrate and show you ways that you wouldn't know. But now in our system, you go to school, you're with the same aged kids, and one poor teacher, there's one adult in the room who's supposed to show you how to be, right? Which is, I mean, come on, man. 1 against 32. I don't know if you've taught kids before, but I have. And let me tell you, wow. It's like you just get in psychically, just the energy they're just pulling from you. You don't even know what's going on. It's so challenging to rein them in and like figure out ways that you can encourage them to listen and be in your space. But the point that I'm trying to make is like we've created this model where even up through from kindergarten through college, through the end of college, you're surrounded by peers that are your own age, and that can be good in certain ways, but it's not the intermingling and intermixing that you might get in doing a men's circle or doing a women's circle. And that's something that we really need. I feel like we need that in our education system too. But anyway, that's another subject. But I feel
I don't think it is another subject. I mean, it's something I love to talk about that because like oh man, it was a real eye opener because when I don't know, 14 years ago when I was doing these talks on education, and I gave this keynote talk that was like, for whatever reason, a big hit. So I got asked to be the closer next year to close the conference. And so that year I went through an awakening. It was during that same period where I was like, well, I really need to look at myself. I need to I got some work to do. And I did the work, and I started becoming acutely aware of exactly what you're talking about, which is like, all the work that I was doing in education, it was super dope. Mm-hmm. But I was, in a way, I don't want to lessen the coolness of what I did, but it was building a better mousetrap. It's like, at the end of the day, it started feeling that way because I was basically making what we're already learning in school cool. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't really looking at what are we learning in school.
Right.
And And
this is really cool what you're talking about.
yeah. And so I had this epiphany, and I was like, oh man, like I had this awakening that like the reason why we're in so much trouble, one of the reasons why we're in so much trouble as a society, is that we've really developed out, and it's only going continually in this direction. And I think that's why people are a little alarmed about the whole AI thing, which is our sophistication of intelligence is far surpassing the evolution of our own humanity. And there are different parts, there are different realms of intelligence, and there's the type of intelligence
We're too smart for our own good.
that we used to get, and indigenous tribes get when those kids go through initiations. And best way I can say it is that we live in a society where a large amount of major decisions about society and what happens on the planet are made by very sophisticated, intelligent, and powerful people who are operating at an adolescent level of emotional intelligence or development.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to insult anybody. It's a
fuck them.
well, we're all in it. We're all in it. It's a part of the fabric of our society. And I think that these collective shifts, like, what's happening is like there's this like collective, catharsis that's happening. It's like a growing up.
Yes.
And,
That's true.
sometimes
compassion for them. So I was just kidding.
yeah, like big wars, big experiences, like big shifts, tragedy, they shift our humanity, and they're required to do that. But if we had embedded in the nature of our traditions in our education systems,
Yes.
if we were to incorporate the tribal initiatory, the great wisdom keepers traditions into the way in which we raise our children and the way the education systems support the development of the whole person,
Yes.
then we would be in a very different space as a people.
100%.
Yeah. And so it's like, to get back to the funny part of the story, I had this awakening that this is what we needed. And the year before, I'd given this super sexy, cool talk that was like, education of the future and like virtual reality and blah, 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 blah. And, we're going to learn how to aerodynamics by flying and accretion of planets through building our own planets and, video games in the classroom and, hands-on learning and all of the stuff that's still emerging as like, important stuff, breaking out of the traditional classroom model. And it was a hit, super hit. A year later, I have this, I'm like, I'm coming back from the jungle, and I give this talk called Earth 2.0. And it's all about this. It's about building in emotional intelligence, building in our humanity, building in the teachings of the elders, building in, and crickets. We're in a different place now, but like back then, I don't think a lot of teachers even knew what to do with that.
It was total cognitive business.
It was like too...
And also, where do you begin?
I think more it was, whoa, this is some food for thought. But like where I'm at now, how do I get there? How do I get to Earth 2.0?
Right.
And sometimes like...
I'm just trying to teach in math.
I'm just trying to get through my math class, man. And I think that happens sometimes when we have... I love to do, I don't know if you know about the Hermetic principles, as above, so below, as within, so without. Like there's within the Hermetic, there's the law of correspondence. So there's like things that can happen at the macro level can be corresponded to there can be a correspondence to things that you see. And so again, there's this notion that like I had an awakening on the medicine, and I don't know if you've had this, where it's like, of course you've had this. You have the epiphany, but you don't do the integration. The medicine wakes you up, or you have you get in the terrible car wreck, or you have the divorce, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I've awakened. But then there's a point of seeing that. There's like, oh, Earth 2.0, here it is. But then it's like, okay, I've been given the sight, but now the work is, how do I get myself to, because you're not there.
Yeah.
It's like the opening. It's the vision into the higher timeline. It's the vision into the higher self. You can see your potential. You can see the collective potential. But then the work, because we're still in the 3D, man. We're not in just the astral, like, think it, be it, live it. Like, we're not in that mutable space.
Yeah.
We're malleable, not mutable, malleable, like instant response to thought. We're in, okay, we got to roll up our sleeves. We got to do the work. Like, how do we get there? How do we become a society that lives in a space of teaching our children this? And
it's terrifying to the status quo too.
Yeah.
It's a new education. And that concludes part 1 of this 2-part episode with my dear brother, Lucien Vattel. Man, I got to say, I'm really inspired by this conversation. I feel it's really representative and emblematic of the new way of thinking that so many of us are adopting, tackling, thinking about. And I'm really inspired to be able to share it. I wanted to split it into 2 because it's really long. There's another hour and change. And also because each episode actually does stand alone on its own. So in the next episode, we get way deeper into the origins of this work that he's created and a lot of very specific tools and how both of us relate to transformation. So look forward to hearing that next week. Much love to all of you. If you want to support this program, go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast. Also, you can go to dangercoffee.com, type in Lunacy at checkout for 10% off. That helps us out as well. And Analemma Water. Again, Lunacy at checkout. Much love, everybody. See you next week.